towards the trolley, the wife comes over to the bus and says, "Thank you so much. Let me tell you our story. We are Holocaust survivors, and we both made a commitment, and we have God never again to repeat any mitzvah." But lately, and every time I've been getting, lately she says, I've been getting nostalgia from my past, and it's really hitting on me hard. I remember as a kid, we were Shabbos and kept Shabbos, kept kosher, and all that, and it bothers me. I don't feel good about myself. Whenever I mention it to my husband, he gets angry at me, so I can't disturb, our peace and tranquility. But I want it so much. So this morning I did something I never did before. I prayed. I prayed to God, show me a sign, do something, help my husband, at least do some kind of mitzvah. And here you came. I want to tell you, I know my husband. Once he starts, the ball gets rolling, and he will put on phone every single day, not just for a month. I'll make sure that he does that, and I'm sure this time he'll be. I think you broke the ice. So here's a guy who's thinking while he's driving in the car, how will I ever do a favor to someone? And in seconds, Hashem provides for him not just a favor, 3 favors in Gashmias, but also changed his whole spiritual life and responded to her prayers. You never know. Things like that can happen very suddenly. You never know how Hashem responds to people, sometimes extremely quick, faster than we can ever imagine. It's a story I wanted to share with you. I told the story over when I was in Buffalo for Pesach. I told the story at the Mashiach Suda. And someone responded, I always wondered, how will I ever do a favor? I knew about that. And he hears the story. I didn't know that. The guy, you never know. From on high, they pull strings, and you sometimes say the right thing at the right time, and it hits people, it affects people. That's the story I want to share with you. Today is Iyar, today is Hayom Yom, that's why I wanted to share with you. Okay, nothing to do with Gemara learning, although it has to do with the Sedra. The parsha this week is V'havta l'reacha kamocha, loving your fellow Jew as yourself. And without Chassidus, it's hard to understand what that means. The Ramban says it just means treat him as if you be yourself. You can't really love someone like yourself. Chassidus says you can, because we all have one source. We all come from Hashem. We're all not just body parts of one body. The Jerusalem Talmud says that Jews are like 2 hands of one body. So if by mistake you hit yourself, and your left hand hit your right hand, you bumped it and you hit yourself by mistake, you're not going to hit yourself back. How dare you do that? It's all you. But it's still two body parts. True of the same body, but it's 2 different parts. Jews are not 2 different parts even. We are mamish one entity in our origin. So therefore, that allows us, if you contemplate on that allows us to have a love for someone like a love for oneself. Today's parsha, a very, very important parsha. It says that this parsha was said in front of every single man, woman, and child. Unusual to have that. Hakel, Rashi says. Every man, every woman, every child was there present during this Farbrengen. From Moshe Rabbeinu, where he gave a lot of basic laws. Don't hate your value. You don't want to hate. You don't want to take revenge. And that can't embarrass somebody. Which that is the segue to our Gemara. We're talking about verbal harassment. You're not allowed to harass your fellow Jew. Someone asked me about a non-Jew. I'm not sure who asked me that. Someone asked me over here on this side about whether it applies to non-Jew. Anyone here that remembers? And I gave one answer, but the Gemara actually addresses this question later on, if it applies to even non-Jews as well. Now, the Sechta, the Gemara the chapter we're learning is all about monetary fraud, overcharging, things like that. But as we talk about monetary fraud, which is a very complicated subject I mentioned last week, it gets into verbal harassment. And what are the examples we gave in the Mishnah? Let's start quickly. One example is, don't tell about tshuva. We remember what you used to do, just to make him feel uncomfortable. You're not allowed to do that. Unless you say to him, wow, what a contrast. You really made leaps and bounds. I remember what you did. And look, see what, how a person can change. But if you're doing it just to harass the person, that's forbidden. We asked last week, why doesn't it mention, we're going to mention about a ger, it mentions about a child of a ger. You're not allowed to tell a child of a ger, remember what your fathers used to do. So the question was asked, why do we skip to the child of a ger? How about telling a ger? Remember, before you were Jewish, you used to do this and this and this. Why not say that? If you're talking about harassing someone based on their past, So why only mention the Baal Tshuva's past and as child of a ger's parents? Why not discuss directly? So we gave two answers. One answer is the Maharshala's answer, that a ger does not get embarrassed when you talk about his past, because on the contrary, he didn't do anything wrong. When he was a non-Jew, he wasn't obligated in all these mitzvahs. It's not shameful for a non-Jew to eat non-kosher or not to keep Shabbos. In fact, they're not allowed to keep Shabbos. So there's no, but a Jew who was supposed to observe and didn't, that's hurtful. That's one view. According to this view, what happens if you tell a guy, we remember how you used to be involved in paganism, idolatry, that's forbidden for a guy, or some other prohibition, Aver Menachai, a limb off a body of a live limb. And then they pull the limb off a body of a certain animal and cooks it later on. That's forbidden for non-Jews as well. Or blasphemy or stealing. These are laws, 7 Noahide laws that are applied to non-Jews. So if you tell this guy, we remember when you were, pre-Gerus, you used to violate all these 7 Noahide laws. Okay. And now look at the difference. But we're trying to remind this person of how bad he was or she. That would be also a violation. But usually when you talk about the person's past, it's about Torah and mitzvahs, which a guy is not obligated. But then comes the Pnei Yeshua. Remember last week, I don't know if you remember his name. Pnei Yeshua was someone who lived in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, a very big Talmud Chacham, a tremendous genius, incredible going, and he has a different view. He says the reason why the Mishnah does not mention about a ger, harassing a ger by mentioning his past, is because the ger is no longer who he was before. A ger becomes a new person. Ger shenish gayer cut into nevodami. It's as if that's not me, that's someone else. Tshuva is not that way, but a ger is mamish, a brand new person. Therefore, you can't. It's not that it's. See, the Maharsha says it's not even a bad thing; it's a good thing. It's praiseworthy. The Pnei Yeshua says it's not praiseworthy, but it's not to him or her. She changed, no longer the same person. Then we discuss another case. You know, I go shopping. Talking now, and stand by the items and say, what do you charge for this? $20? No, $20. If you do that, you're harassing the owner because he feels at one moment that you're going to be a customer, and then you walk away, and it's a letdown. You now want to fool the person to believe that you're going to buy it and then not buy it. Now, if you really had in mind to buy it, just you can't afford it, that's something else. But if you never had in mind to buy it, just playing games with him. You never had in mind to buy the item, not interested in it, just play a game. How much is this worth? And he thinks you're the customer, and then you give up. In addition to the fact that you're harassing that person verbally, you're also causing him a possible money loss. Because if the other customer watches and sees how, because of the price, you're not going to buy it, right? You're not going to admit that I never wanted to buy it. You're ashamed to say I never had any money to buy it. What you're really saying is, I would buy it, but it's not worth that much. So another person who hears that is going to, okay, I guess it's not worth that much, and try to bargain down the price. So the owner can lose customers based on your trick of refusing to buy what you thought you were going to buy. Then we mentioned another example. You're not allowed to tell a person who's suffering. Can't tell a person. Everyone have the copy, by the way, from last week?
No, no.
Okay, so
I
here's.
have it at home. I think I left it at home, but I did have it.
Okay, take this.
Thank you.
Take this.
All
Yeah,
this.
all this. Anyone else?
Yeah, sure.
What was the other example we had? The other example was person is going through terrible suffering, like Iyar was. Don't tell him, if you would have been a little more, had a little more bitachon, what would have happened to you? That's pouring, kerosene on the fire or salt on the wound. He's suffering enough. Why are you telling him this? How about consoling him, saying, don't worry, Hashem will come to your aid, you'll be okay. You know what to do? That's called harassment. Then we also mentioned about sending a person on a wild goose chase. Guy's looking to transport some, grain. You tell him, I think this guy wants some grain. So he's a good customer, and he's not. You're just making up stories. So that's a lie, and it's also harassing. We also mentioned, that's not mentioned in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to go over to a teacher, knowing the teacher does not know the answer, just to get him to admit he doesn't know the answer. I'm sure none of you do that.
Why do we do that?
You can go to a teacher, to ask a question, knowing that the teacher will be stumping the rabbi, knowing that he or she has no answer to this question.
In front of people or just?
Even not in front, because he gets
So
uncomfortable.
why is Chabad's favorite event being stump the rabbi?
Yeah.
Every single Chabad house has it.
That's not really, but the rabbi never gets stumped, he always has an answer.
Yeah, and also.
Let's try to stump the rabbi, but it doesn't work.
What if I give the rabbi a tree stump? Then he has to be stumped. And also in that case, the rabbi is specifically asking you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The rabbi wants you to try it. It's a game. We want you to challenge. So that's, I feel good if my student stumps me. I feel actually good. Talking about a person who's not a student, just goes over to some rabbi there and tries to prove that the rabbi feels bad, can't answer the question.
What's the best question you were asked to just have you so stumped that you're like,
about the black hat and the gray hat? That was the best one.
Hey, good answer.
Can I ask something about the difference?
Yes, I want to learn something. Go ahead.
Okay, after.
Go straight up. Okay, now. So we yes.
The difference is that you can ask a question, but if the rabbi doesn't know, that's okay, but you can't specifically ask a question that you know they don't know.
That's right. Only if you plan to fool the person is a problem.
Yeah.
You're not violating anything if the person gets fooled because of you. It's not, you didn't mean that. And that's why Hashem is the only one who can really tell your thoughts. It says, you're raising me, if you're going to say, I never really meant to be. I thought he knew the answer. She knew the answer. Yeah. You can fool people, you can't fool God. After it says, the law of verbal harassment says, fear the one above. One also mentioned that. But I want to mention one more thing. In the Gemara brought a brisa. Brisa is like a Mishnah, but it's not exactly a Mishnah. And it seems that Rabbi Yehuda, who's mentioned in the brisa, gives a little different twist of the prohibition in the shopping case. He says you can't go and stand by an item of purchase when you don't have the money to buy it. Now here you would buy it had you had the money. And you're not saying anything. You're not asking the person what's the price. You're just standing by, just as if you want to buy it, but you're not actually verbalizing anything. So the Tana of our Mishnah does not mention that case. The Tana of our Mishnah only mentions a case where you ask, how much is this? And you have no intention of buying it at all, regardless of the price. That's a much greater fraud. Rabbi Yehuda seems to be saying that even if you stand by without saying a word, just standing next to an item of purchase, making it look like you're going to buy it, and you would love to buy it but you don't have your wallet with you. Maybe another day I'll buy it, but not today. That's also a problem, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Who do we follow? Who do we follow halachically? Well, Rabbi Yehuda is only a single person. The Mishnah is anonymous, no name. If it's no name, it means everyone holds that way except for Rabbi Yehuda. So that would mean to go after the majority, which means it wouldn't be a problem to stand by a mekach, an item of purchase, and not buy it. If you really would want to buy it, you just don't have the money. But it's not so simple. I don't know what the halacha is. The Rambam discusses this, and it seems like he follows the view of the Mishnah, but others seem to argue. So it's not very simple. Yes.
So we mentioned window shopping last time and how that's looking at.
Window shopping is not a problem because you're not really going into the store.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. And today, I don't think it's a problem. The whole thing doesn't apply because women have a tendency of going into stores and not buying anything.
Yeah, but I was just saying, it's like you just said,
if you tell the person,
the norm to just look at things.
That's right. If you tell the person, right, or especially if you tell the person, I don't know if I'm going to buy it. I just want to see. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy it. Can I just look at it? That's no problem. It's clear, no problem. I'm sure, no problem. It's only.
It's specific for small shops, probably. No, if I'm going to big shop that someone the charge is not in the shop, they just
Yeah.
So it's fine because they
not the owner.
also care.
Yeah. I don't know what the owner of the store is actually there. And he feels hard. It could be also not a store. It could be just a private person selling things. You go by and you look at the flowers, people selling flowers, usually non-Jews, selling flowers at the corner from Heights every Friday, and you go over and say, what's the price? Thank you. Goodbye. That would be a problem. Okay, let's go further now.
So what do you need to do?
Just tell the person, I don't know if I want to buy this. I'll let the person know, but you might not be able to buy it if you don't have the money with you, or just ask the person, tell him or her, I'm not trying to buy this for sure. I want to know whether I can afford it. That's all. Okay. Now, let's go to the second page. You see you have this page of the Hebrew or the Aramaic. Then you have the first page of English over here. Then you have the second page of English. It starts with Gemara. See that? Gemara. Got it? No? Yes? Maybe? Got it. Okay, so that we started already. Now we started last week. I'm not going to go over it again. I just went over it outside. Let's go to the very last two lines or last paragraph, which starts with the last two paragraphs. The Brisa notes that the Torah on the right side of the page on top, the right side, not the top, but I mean the top half, the bottom part of the top half before it says notes. The Brisa notes the Torah juxtaposes means medameh, the prohibition, ha'isur, against, neged, verbal wronging, ona'ah shel dibur, with the obligation, with the chiyuv, to have fear of God, and explains why. Why is the fear of God mentioned by this more than by monetary harassment, monetary fraud? The answer is, shaharei hadavar masor lelei. For the matter of fooling someone depends on the person's intent, which is hidden from other mortals. Only Hashem knows. The chol davar hamasor lelei, any and concerning any matter that depends on the person's thoughts. Let's go to the next page. Turn the page because that's where we're up to now. Hold on a second. This is the copy didn't come out very well. Hold on a second. Let me take a look at this. So this is on the bottom of, not the bottom, not the bottom. Hold on a second. Yeah, anything concerning any matter that depends on the person's intent, it is stated, and you shall fear God. That's what's missing here. Yeah. The top of the page is missing. Nemar boy, v'yaresim elekecha. So the words nemar boy, you can see is rubbed out. You can't see it. It says v'yaresa me'elekecha. Whenever it's something dependent on a person's thoughts, people can't read thoughts. Only Hashem can. So it will always say, observe this and have fear of God. Let's go to the next one. Gemara cites some Tanaic teaching. Tanaic means Mishnah, about the gravity of the verbal wronging, how grave of a sin it is. Amar Rav Yechanan Meshum Rav Shimon ben Yechoy. Rav Yechanan says in the name of Rav Shimon ben Yechoy, coming up, he's Lag Bomer. This, by the way, I forgot to mention on Tuesday, that Tuesday, which was Tiferes Shabbat Tiferes, is Lag Bomer backwards. You know what I mean? 33rd from Shavuos, we count backwards from Shavuos, 33rd day, it was this past Tuesday. So Tiferes Shabbat Tiferes is equal to Hod Shabbat. Hod Shabbat is Lag Bomer, going forwards, and Hod Shabbat going backwards from Shavuos, going back towards Pesach. The 33rd day was this past Tuesday. And the Rebbe has a strong connection between the Lag Bomer that we celebrate and the Rebbe Marash's birthday, which took place on this past Tuesday. Okay. Side point. Anyways, what does he say here? Gadol einoas dvarim einoas mammon. Greater verbal wronging is a greater sin than monetary wronging, for two reasons. When it comes to the wronging of a person, verbally it says you shall fear God. So you're fighting against God because he's the only one that knows. When it comes to money matters that you are not honest with, it doesn't say you shall fear God, because you're not showing that you put God in front of people. Everyone can see that you are a fraud. So that's why it's worse. That's why it's worse for a thief. There's two, the thief and a robber. A thief is someone who does things stealthily, and a robber who robs openly. Who's worse? The one who does it stealthily. He has to pay double. If he steals, he's penalized to pay a double of what he stole. The Gazlan, that's called Ganav. Gazlan, the one who robs openly, in broad daylight, not afraid of people, only pays back what he stole. It's not penalized. What's the reason? Because the Ganav shows that he puts people over Hashem. He's afraid of people, which is why he does it stealthily. Hashem also sees him. I don't know. The fact that Hashem sees doesn't bother me. I'm not afraid of him. I'm afraid of people. So that's worse. So therefore, he pays double. Double because he's putting Hashem secondary to people. That's the reason why he pays double. So likewise over here, the reason why verbal harassment is worse is because you're putting Hashem second to people. Okay, that's one answer. Rabbi Loza says, I have another reason why it's worse to ask someone verbally than taking away that person's money. Zebe gufo, zebe mamono. Verbal wronging affects his victim's very self. You're hurting his person's feelings. Here you're hurting a person's money. And that money can always be retrieved. Money is retrievable. So it's not as bad. It's also interesting, another halakha. If I want, I could give my money away. I could say I owe someone something, lie and say I owe you this, so therefore take it. And I don't owe you a penny. Give your money away. I can tell me, do me a favor. Take my shirt, and if you want, you can tear it. I'm allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say, give me a slap over the face. I authorize you to go give me a hard slap over the face. Listen, it's me. I'll be all right. No, you're not an owner over your body. Your body is holy. Your body belongs to God. You can't, that's why even fasting is not so simple. If you can't take a fast, and it's not one of the fast days, you're not allowed to fast because you're injuring your body for no cause. Even if you have a good reason, it's also questionable. But you're certainly not allowed, you're not an owner, you don't own, you have no control of ownership over your body, but you do have, you're not allowed to tell a person, embarrass me either. It's also considered your body. You're not allowed to tell someone, I want you to embarrass me in public. Not allowed to do that. You have no right to embarrass yourself either. But you have a right to give away your money. So we see that body is much more important to a person than one's money. That's one answer, another answer. Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar, Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, monetary wronging restitution is possible. You can fix the problem. But with the verbal wronging, even if you ask the person for forgiveness, it's never the same. Restitution is not possible. You've hurt the person, you can't get that back. That hurt does not, after a while, it's not going to be, become null and void just because the guy is willing to retract and ask for forgiveness. Okay. Now, let's go further. Tani, Gemara cites another example of verbal wronging and discusses its severity. Tani Tana Kamei de Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. A Tana taught the following brisa. Again, a brisa is similar to a Mishnah, but not something that was said in a formal way. It was said outside talk, outside discussion of the Mishnah. So in the brisa, it says the following. In the presence, and he quoted this brisa, in the presence of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Kol hamalvin pnei chaveroi barabin. If anyone makes his friend's face turn white from shame in public, only in public, this is not that it's okay to do it in private. You shame someone in public, ki'ilu shofech damim. It is as if you have spilled blood, you have murdered somebody. Why does it say damim? It's plural, shofech damim. It should say ki'ilu shofech dam. You only did to one person, right? Damim sounds like more than one person. And I saw an interesting commentary saying, when you embarrass somebody in public, first of all, right there and then, the person turns white or red, and that's also bloodshed. But in addition to that, when even a day later, when the person remembers the embarrassing experience, again, he gets embarrassed. So it's like you're spilling blood more than once. So it's damim, plural.
It's interesting because I think of it from a different way, where sometimes if I'm in public and I see someone be embarrassed, I feel embarrassed for them.
Okay, you're a good person.
Sometimes, but so that's kind of how I was thinking. Is it is like also the people that watch it happen.
Very interesting, but not everyone is as genuine as you are. The average person, well, sometimes it depends. It depends on who the person is, and what kind of association you have with that person. But you could be, you get embarrassed, feeling terrible for that person. It depends probably on the situation, but that's a good answer. It's a good explanation. Interesting. Okay.
But if not another person, don't take it seriously.
Okay, well, let's not talk about this. Amrale, good that you asked that. Amrale, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says to the Tana, you're right. I relate to the fact that it's tantamount to murder. It's just like Ritzicha. Shapir ka'amrit. What you say is shapir, is right, like sapphire. Shapir, it shines, it radiates, it's true. Yes, it is indeed like murder. Why? The chazinale, because I have seen how the red coloring leaves the face of an embarrassed person and his face turns white. First he turns red, a little anger, how dare you? And then when he feels or she feels, I can't defend myself, you get scared and the blood leaves. So there's a collection of blood that goes away, the person turns scared white. There's fear or anger, and then you're frightened. How am I gonna, it's terrible, this person has ruined my name, I'm so embarrassed. And that causes fright, and the person's face turns white. From red to white is bloodshed. Inside the person's body, there's bloodshed. He says, you're absolutely right. There's actual bloodshed, physically. Amalei l'Ravdimi. The Gemara continues to discuss this idea. B'Maharava, in the west, not the west coast. The west, the other west. Because the Gemara was in Babylonia, which is east of Israel. So they call the Israelis the west. West of Babel is the east. Babel is west, is east of Israel, and Israel is the west of Babel. Yeah. So they would refer to the stages of the Talmud Yerushalmi, of the Jerusalem Talmud, they would refer to them as the sages of the west. And they said the following: they were very, very careful. Amalei ba'achvuri api. They are careful about not embarrassing people more than the Babylonians. Why is that? Let's see. The Amar Rabbi Chanina. Let me, before we get to the next piece, what's the reason why in Israel they were more careful about not embarrassing people than in Chutz La'aretz? So there's several answers for that. Gemara says one answer is that living in Eretz Yisrael gives you a guarantee to get Olam Haba, just living with the spirit of Eretz Yisrael. And as we'll soon see, if you embarrass a person in public on a routine-ish, you lose your Olam Haba. So in Eretz Yisrael, where living there brings your Olam Haba, they were very careful not even to embarrass somebody unintentionally. Very careful means even if you didn't mean it, but if someone gets embarrassed, that bothers you to the extent that you go overboard in making sure that what you say is you're accountable for what you're saying. So they would be very, very careful. That's one answer as to what it has to do with Israel. Another answer is, I think Eretz Yisrael and the Jewish people are very much connected. It's a Jewish land, and the Jewish body is also special. Just like the physical land of Eretz Yisrael, even though it's not spiritual, it's a land, part of the geography. Yet it has holiness. So does a Jewish body and feelings also have holiness. So if you're living in Eretz Yisrael, you're living with the understanding of how important it is not to hurt another person, even though it's not a spiritual, hurt. It's a more of an emotional thing, which has to do with the nefesh b'hamis, not so much a nefesh b'kis. But being that Eretz Yisrael, even its gashmis is also holy, so therefore we understand the beauty and the holiness of a Jew's body and bodily tendencies and honor and dignity. That's another explanation as to why the Israelis were very careful. I don't know about today, but back then that's how it was. Now he goes further. But achvuri api. Achvuri is the word to make a person white. A person gets embarrassed, they turn white. And how do you say white in Aramaic? Chiver. Chiver, ches vav vav reich, is the word white in Aramaic. Achvuri means to cause a person's face to get white. The Amar Rabbi Chanina, listen to this. Hakol yordim legehenim chutz mishloisha. Everyone goes to Gehenna except for three. Wait. Before the Gemara has a chance to finish its sentence, the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Hakol zokataytich? Everyone goes to Gehenna? There's so many tzaddikim who don't. No, you're right. You don't let me finish my sentence. I didn't mean to say everyone goes to Gehenna except for three people. I meant to say the following. Hakol hayardim legehenna. Of those people that do have to go through purgatory, Gehenna, they arise, olim. Eventually they arise from Gehenna, except for three people who go down and never come up. So yardim ve'ein olim. Ve'elohein, these are the three people. Habo al etresish, someone who cohabits with another man's wife. And it would also seem to apply to not only to the guy who does it, but also to the woman who consensual with that man. So she's a married woman, violates adultery. It probably would apply to her as well, though it doesn't say so. Someone who makes his friend face turn white from shame in public. And the Rambam mentions not every time, only if you do it, many times. In other words, if a person by mistake just, you were angry at someone, you wanted to take revenge, and you want to embarrass that person, as a one-time thing, you don't lose your Ilm Haba. If you do it on a constant basis, that's your kind of person you are, that's when you lose your Ilm Haba. And someone who calls his friend an embarrassing nickname. So the Gemara says, well, that's the same thing as embarrassing. Why are you specifying that? The Gemara asks, but nicknaming is the same as embarrassing. Mechaneh hainu malbin. Why are you specifying that type of embarrassment of all other kinds of embarrassment? And the Gemara explains, no. You don't mean that you call the person by a name and that person really turns red or his face turns white. We're talking about that even if a guy is so used to that nickname, a derogatory nickname, but the person is so used to it, they don't get embarrassed anymore. But your intention is to embarrass that person. That's also considered in the same category as a person embarrassing one in public. So, even if someone is used to being called by his nickname, and is so used to it, doesn't turn white upon hearing it, because it's a name of someone, it's very personal. It's a grievous sin to call him by that name, unless the person doesn't, unless it's not really derogatory and you have no intentions. If you have no intentions of hurting that person, it's a nice nickname, it's shorter, It could have derogatory, implications, but that's not what you're trying, you don't mean it that way. It's just easier to call the person by that. It's a shortcut of calling them. That's not a problem. The problem is when you intend to embarrass someone, even though the person does not get embarrassed. So now we have another statement from the name of Rabbi Yechonah. Rabba bar Chana, Rabba, the son of Bar Chana. Bar. The first bar means the son. The second bar is his name. Bar, the son of Bar Chana, of a person named Bar Chana. So Rabba, the son of Bar Chana, said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. He said that Rabbi Yochanan said, turn to the next page. It is better that a man cohabit with a woman who is possibly another man's wife. In other words, we don't know if she's still married or not. Maybe she got a get, but the get is questionable. So we don't know if she's still a married woman or not. It's better, you're in a better situation if you were to violate that problem, that prohibition of cohabiting with a woman who might still be married. Choose that over shaming your person in public, another person in public. Another Jew in public. Now, this does not mean if you have an option to either embarrass somebody or to violate possible adultery, you pick adultery. It means if someone were to accuse you of adultery, of possible adultery, and it's not true, it's not true. And the only way you can get out of it is by exposing the real guy, i.e. embarrassing someone. Don't do that. Let people think that you actually violated the law of adultery, of possible adultery, rather than embarrassing the real guy. If it's possible adultery, but if they're accusing you of definite adultery, not questionable, then it seems like that you're allowed to expose the real guy, the real person. But if it's only a suffix, questionable, people are talking, I think this guy, and you have a chance to clear yourself, you can't clear yourself. Here comes the story of David HaMelech. Not too much time, let's go right there. It's an interesting piece here. How do we know this? Mididarish Rava, from the verse that Rava once expounded. The Darash Rava expounded the following verse. My Dirse, what is the meaning of that which is written in Tehillim 35:15? Take a look at 35:15 in Tehillim. It says the following: David HaMelech was complaining how he's suffering from his enemies. Uvitzali, Samchu b'nei Asafu. The simple shot means Uvitzali, when I was limping. Tzoleya al Yerecho. If you remember by Yaakov Avinu, it says that the Malach caused him to become crippled, to limp. So it says Tzali, but Tzoleya. So the simple meaning is Uvitzali, and when I was limping from my pains, my enemies rejoiced. Samchu, and they gathered together. B'nei Asafu. They tore me apart. They tore at me and would not be silenced. They tore with all kinds of insults and embarrassed me, and they would not be silenced. So here comes David HaMelech saying the following. The word Uvitzali can mean limping. It could also mean something else. In Chumash, Chava is called Well, she wasn't really the rib. She's called the side of the Marisha. Sela can mean the side. She came from him. So Sally means your wife. Another way of saying one's wife. Uvitzali, and concerning my wife, Bathsheba, the story of Bathsheba, you know the whole mice of Bathsheba, she was married to someone else. She was married to Uriah Hachiti. What's the story? Uriah Hachiti rebelled against King David, David HaMelech. And his wife was Bathsheba. He went to war. The din is when a person goes to war and might never come back, they want your wife to remain in the Haguna, to remain stuck with not being able to remarry because you don't know where the husband's whereabouts are. So he would give a get, on condition that if he doesn't come back, if we find out that he's, if he doesn't return after the war, the get should be valid, in effect. And if not, if he does come back, the get is void. So it's a get on condition. And this is how Rashi learned, seemingly. So Uriah Hachiti actually had given his wife a get, but it was on condition he doesn't return, and he didn't return. So retroactively, David HaMelech was allowed to be with Bathsheba. But that was only retroactive, but until we find out the whereabouts of Uriah Hachiti, the husband of this Bathsheba, David was not allowed to be with her, and yet he was with her. Now, there's a lot of talk about this. How could you say it wasn't a sin? It was something. You're not allowed to marry a woman who's still possibly married to someone to suffocate the fish. That's the example. He might be a married woman. We don't know. If Uriah will return, the get is void. The get is void, she's still married. And yet David cohabited with her, was with her. There's a whole long story in Tanakh about this. So they were telling David HaMelech, hey, suffocation, look at what you just did. What does David HaMelech say back to them? He says, I'm better off, even if what you're saying about me is a lot less of a problem than what you're doing to me. You're embarrassing, and embarrassing someone in public has no chedek l'olam haba. Someone who does what I did, what you think I did, will get a chedek l'olam haba. So even though I'm with an Eifus Ish, I will get a chedek l'olam haba. Even if worse comes to worse, and I cohabited with a woman who was still married, I will get l'olam haba. But what you're doing, you will lose your l'olam haba. So you're worse off than me. That's what he said to them. Let me finish this piece off. And it's really a contradiction to what we said before. You remember we mentioned three people who don't get l'olam haba. Who are they? One of them is whoever cohabits with a woman who's married. What is David HaMelech saying to them? I at least, even if it's true, even if your accusations are true, I at least will get l'olam haba. But you, by constantly, continuously berating me and insulting me, you will lose your l'olam haba. So I am better off than you. But we just got finished saying that if a person cohabits with somebody who's married, a woman who's married, does lose her l'olam haba. So there's a contradiction between this Gemara and the Gemara we had before. You understand what I'm saying? Before we say that a woman who is married and a man is with her that man loses her l'olam haba. And here the Gemara is saying that David HaMelech is saying, David HaMelech is trying to tell those that mocked him, Achitophel, and others that were mocking him and chastising him the whole time, that they are worse off than him. Let's just see quickly inside. So how do they translate Ubitzali? Concerning my wife, my side. Samchu, they were rejoicing on being able to find fault with me. V'ne'asafu, karu, they ripped at me. V'loy damu. Now what karu l'damu means, not they were in silence, but it has another meaning. Amar double of Nakadosh Baruch Hu. We're almost finished. Ribbanu Shalaylam. It is well known to you that if my enemies were to tear my flesh, lo dami shoyseis la'aretz. Lo damu can mean two things. They weren't silent, like domain, or there was no blood. They would tear me, my blood would not flow to the ground because it has been drained because of all the embarrassment. It's as if I have no blood anymore. For it has drained from the surface because of all their taunts about my sin. Below oath. And not only do they taunt me in their spare time, even when they're learning. They're learning the most complex laws in the Talmud, which is negoyim, leprosy, the laws of, not really leprosy, but skin lesions, skin diseases. And then we had that 2 weeks ago. Then we have ahalois, the laws of a dead body under the same roof. They say to him, David haba aleishas ish. King David, who was with a woman who was married, what type of death does he deserve? And I say, Misasi Bechenik. But yes, a death penalty, but at least that person will get Olam Haba. As but a person who causes embarrassment to his friend in public, okay, we need to answer the contradiction. Does a person who violates adultery lose the Olam Haba or not? Before it said he does, now it says he doesn't. How do you reconcile that? We'll leave that for not next week. Next week there's no class. We're going on a trip next week, I understand. So 2 weeks from now.
Wait, what? We're on a trip?
Oh, you don't know that?
Wow, thank you for
I didn't say anything.
No, it's good. It's nice to actually have planning ahead of